Chapter 1066. Needing to be formal. By the time the team members returned, Happy Internet Cafe had returned to normal. When the Challenger League ended, players and reporters swarmed there to see if they could catch a glimpse of anything. Unfortunately, the protagonists weren't there. And now that the finals had started, the reporters wouldn't be missing this annual meeting, and the players couldn't stick around the Internet Cafe endlessly. As a result, people gradually took their leave. Yishu's trio didn't return to Happy Internet Cafe after they left Excellent Era. In fact, ever since they rented the gaming house in Forest Park, everyone apart from Chen Guo rarely went to the Internet Cafe. This included Yishu and Tang Ru, who previously worked in the cafe. Chen Guo employed new people to take their place, so they could commit their efforts wholeheartedly towards glory. Chen Guo felt that the house in Forest Park was no longer enough for them though. The terraced houses were 2 stories tall, the bottom floor was used as a training room, while all the rooms in the top floor became the bedrooms, which accommodated 2 members each. In the beginning, Chen Guo thought this was enough, but after thinking about it now, she realized that she thought too simply of a team structure. Nowadays, players were the main core of the team. To keep up their fighting power, the guild and R&D departments were necessary. Wu Chen was now completely committed towards Happy's guild department. The players they had met in the 10th server like 7 Fields didn't originally plan on joining the Heavenly Domain again. However, after seeing how successful Team Happy became, their hearts were moved. All of them planned on completing the Heavenly Domain challenge, so they could fight their way through Heavenly Domain and assist in the team's expansion. However, members like 7 Fields could only support part-time. Happy only had Wu Chen to take care of the guild full-time. However, the team would grow. No team would only have the guild leader alone in the guild office. Just from the number of people alone, the guild department would be the largest group in a club. There would be both full-time and part-time members. But since their job was limited to the game, most of them wouldn't come to the club for work. In the end, it didn't matter whether they worked at the club or not. But because they belonged to the club as permanent or contract employees, their numbers would be great. As for the R&D department, it was the department requiring the highest confidentiality, so they appeared to be the most absolutely necessary part of the internal affairs for the club. So even though the number of people working in there would be far less than those in the guild department, it was required of them to work at the club. Happy wasn't that large yet, but as it continued to grow, they would eventually have to build these up. After taking in all these factors, the terraced houses in Forest Park wouldn't be enough to fit all of them in. Should we rent another house? While Chen Guo was thinking about how she should solve this problem, Yishu brought a person before her. Guan Rongfei, the core god of Excellent Era's R&D department, Yishu introduced Guan Rongfei to Chen Guo. Hi, welcome. Chen Guo took the initiative to go up to shake his hand. She was extremely excited, because she knew that the person Yishu brought here wasn't here to just look around. Hi, Guan Rongfei greeted Chen Guo simply. He didn't even bother to ask about her identity before he turned his head to ask Yishu. When should we start? Where's my computer? Over there. Yishu had to search around the living room before he could finally point out a position. In the training room Chen Guo set up, there were 12 computers in a circle. If Happy included Su Mucheng, as well as Chen Guo, who was always using one, there was only one unused computer left. This remaining computer was allocated to Guan Rongfei by Yishu. Oh, Guan Rongfei replied and quickly moved towards the computer. When he reached there, someone sat in the middle seat between the 3 computers and didn't even look at him when he went over. I'm Guan Rongfei. Guan Rongfei introduced himself. Mo Fan, that person only reported his name without even turning his head. After that, Guan Rongfei sat down to turn on the computer and didn't pay attention to Mo Fan's reply. The two sat together without any bit of interaction as they did their own work. The first thing Guan Rongfei did after the computer turned on was to connect to his external hard drive. He went through the documents as he controlled the keyboard and mouse with familiarity. He would occasionally murmur, "This can," and "this can't." Chen Guo followed along earlier. She saw Guan Rongfei move all the "can't" documents into the computer while he instantly deleted the "can't" documents. Why can't we use those? Chen Guo couldn't help but ask out of curiosity. Those are confidential, so they can't be used, Guan Rongfei said. Huh? Chen Guo didn't really understand. It's the R&D department's NDA, Yi Shu came over to explain. Members of the R&D department definitely needed to sign an NDA, otherwise there wouldn't be any secrets about silver equipment. A person could leave a club and take away large amounts of information. The club couldn't stop the people from leaving, so signing the NDA was required. Although the agreement couldn't completely prevent the club's information from being taken, at least it wouldn't be used in such a broad and open way. People would often find loopholes, but it hadn't gone far enough that they could not tolerate it anymore and took it to court. Guan Rongfei dove into his job without having a second word spoken. His increasing enthusiasm was rather shocking for Chen Guo, this god of the R&D department from Excellent Era. What sort of compensation was needed to keep him up and going? For the past days, Chen Guo had constantly been pondering about these problems. However, it would be underestimating Boss Chen if her mind was completely blank. During the days they stayed at Heavenly Sword's place in City B, Chen Guo had humbly asked Lu Guaning about managing a team. As for Lu Guaning, he had even gathered the actual managing team of Heavenly Sword to help Chen Guo analyze Happy's current situation. From what the professional team saw, Happy's current situation was excellent. After defeating Excellent Era and advancing forward to enter the professional scene, no new team had ever received such widespread attention. How could Team Happy not get any sponsors in the new season? For them, this was simply impossible. In their current situation, sponsors might come to their doorsteps without even having to search for them. The fact that Excellent Era might possibly split and be disbanded was very beneficial news for Happy's development. For sponsors in the same city as Excellent Era, if they still prized glory as a good way to advertise, it was very likely for them to directly switch their sponsorship to Happy. By having a sponsor that was in the same city, they would naturally be able to establish a regional reputation. Since Glory was a popular esports, a team that won the championships would give pride to the whole city. By supporting a team in the same city, it would naturally give them a beneficial foundation in their local region. Heavenly Sword taught a bunch of everything here and there to Chen Guo, and she was genuinely determined to learn this time. If there was anything she didn't understand, she made sure she could ask and be clear about it. She gained a lot within the few days. Even though she would constantly ponder about matters such as the compensation towards the team members, she was finally able to ease her heart. According to what the professionals in Heavenly Sword had said, Happy was a project that could not fail. What if we become the champion? Chen Guo asked. The professionals of Heavenly Sword looked at one another speechlessly. After a while, a glasses dude pushed up his spectacles before speaking. If that really happened, I think this is probably what we call lucrative. After returning from City B, Chen Guo was enormously proud and was thinking about how she could improve their training environment. Now that Guan Rongfei was brought here, it really reached the point where they couldn't stay unchanged. The 12 computers were all used up. If someone else joined, where should they be distributed? In addition, it was unpresentable for a team to have the guild and R&D department to sit together. For technological jobs like Guan Rongfei's, they probably needed peace and quiet, right? However, in guild's department, there would constantly be yelling and screaming. After Chen Guo made up her mind, she pondered on the different kinds of ideas. From what she saw, now was the right time to discuss this matter, so she looked for Yi Shu. Hold on, I'll give this to him first. Yi Shu was organizing Myriad Manifestation Umbrella's information for Guan Rongfei. Guan Rongfei was the one being impatient, not Yi Shu. When he was finished with his external hard drive, he started to hurry Yi Shu up with his eyes. It's nothing important. I was just thinking that since we have become a formal team, team members would increase in the future, which is why I think this place is a bit unsuited. I currently have 2 ideas. Hear me out, Chen Guo spoke. Sure, go on, Yi Shu nodded as he continued to import the documents. I am personally leaning towards the first idea, as it's also more homely. I was planning to clear out the whole of Floor 2 in Happy. That level would become the training center and no longer be used for the internet cafe business. After visiting Heavenly Sword, I feel it's enough for our training center and as well as some space for the guild and R&D department, Chen Guo said. Not bad, Yi Shu nodded. The other idea is to find a proper workplace and hire 3 to 5 rooms as our base. I keep feeling like it wouldn't be proper though, Chen Guo said. Are you telling me that you were planning on having us practice in an office? Yi Shu asked. It's not proper, right? Chen Guo asked. Not at all, Yi Shu said. Then we'll go along with the first idea. We're currently unable to build another floor anyways, Chen Guo said. The first idea is pretty good. Did you know that when I first started, the place where the team trained was in an internet cafe? I'm merely walking through the same path from before again. However, we didn't have such good conditions at the time. The most we could do was to reserve a row of computers just for us in the internet cafe, Yi Shu said. Oh, speaking of it, what did Dao Zhan used to do? Chen Guo asked. He used to be a boss of an internet cafe as well, Yi Shu said. Chapter 1067. Sponsorships. Dao Zhan used to run an internet cafe as well? This answer was shocking for Chen Guo. She had never felt a lick of anything but distaste for Dao Zhan, yet now she found out that this guy used to be in the same line of business as she was and immediately felt shame for him. I really couldn't tell, Chen Guo said in disgruntlement. Yi Shu smiled, but didn't say anything. And after that, Chen Guo then pursued because she suddenly realized that Excellent Era's rise to power back then was something she could probably learn a lot from. After that was going around competing in competitions. By then, the alliance might have already been created, but it was just starting out and didn't have the same influence and renown as it does today. There were plenty of glory competitions just like it and we would enter them all. Online matches, offline matches, so long as there was no scheduling conflict, we wouldn't miss a single one, Yi Shu said. To train the team, Chen Guo guessed. No, to win the prize money and make sure the team lived on and make sure the players lived on, Yi Shu said. Chen Guo was stunned. Though she was older than Yi Shu, she hadn't been a part of Glory for as long as he had. She had started out playing casually to pass the time to becoming a fan to follow the pro scene. By then, the alliance had already been well established, and the teams and players had become shining stars. At the very least, Club Excellent Era had already settled opposite to Happy Internet Cafe and the resplendent team logo was already hung up. It was no longer what Yi Shu described, needing to play in all sorts of matches to win enough prize money to live on. I no longer remember how many matches we played that year, how much prize money we won but never received. However, the Glory Pro Alliance was the most stable competition, which also gave the heftiest cash rewards. A year later, it had already gained much attention from the populace. More sponsorships, promoting it far and wide meant that the competing teams would get larger bonuses and more prize money. With this cycle, the teams in the alliance began to grow rapidly, side by side. Chen Guo nodded. She understood now. Even some of the things Yi Shu didn't explain explicitly, she could guess. Excellent Era had successively won the first 3 championships of the alliance. Without a doubt, disregarding the alliance itself, they were the organization that took the greatest share of profit from the alliance's first years. It was with this that Excellent Era managed to go from an internet cafe team, a team that sounded downright poverty-stricken, to a top powerhouse. As for the current Happy? Chen Guo suddenly realized that the most difficult section of Happy's journey had somehow gone by without notice. Recalling their journey, from nothing to something, and then to the Challenger League, facing a massive powerhouse like Excellent Era, this was an impossible journey. But they did it. Would there be anything as difficult as this? Taking the championship title? Of course it would be difficult, but winning or losing the championships didn't affect the continued survival of a team. Team Happy had even managed to get through a life and death situation. Wouldn't the future be smoother? In that moment, Chen Guo's confidence returned to her in full. She immediately left the house and returned to the internet cafe. From now on, she was going to focus completely on doing the best she could for her team. Before, she had turned part of the second floor of their internet cafe into a training center, but she was still a little anxious inside. After all, the internet cafe was her most stable source of income. But now, Chen Guo wasn't afraid anymore. Happy had come this far, there was no reason they'd fall now. On the way over, Chen Guo had already picked up her phone to make a call and booked for renovators to come and take a look at the internet cafe. After getting back to Happy and welcoming said renovators, they all went to the second floor together. She relayed her requirements to the renovators as they looked over the place of discussion. After discussing for almost a full day, the other went back to begin on blueprints. As for Chen Guo, she took her second big step after this first one. Is this little Chong? It's Sis Chen. Chen Guo dialed the City H Esports home reporter's number. Of the two esports home reporters assigned to City H, one was in heaven and the other was in hell. Glory was currently the hottest esports in the country. Although Esports Home was a comprehensive esports media group, they still focused primarily on Glory. The reason for the construction of City H's reporter base was entirely because of the local Team Excellent era. Logically speaking, there was no longer a reason for City H's reporter base to exist anymore with Excellent era's relegation. However, no one had ever doubted Excellent era's ability to immediately slaughter its way back into the alliance from the Challenger League, not even Esports Home. Thus, the City H reporter base remained. Even though this year was a desolate one for the renowned reporter Cao Guangcheng, he didn't despair, patiently waiting for the day Excellent era would return to the alliance. But no one had ever thought that Excellent era would fail just like that. What was even more awkward for Cao Guangcheng was that the one to defeat Excellent era was Team Happy, Chang Xian's treasure, but a team that Cao Guangcheng didn't approve of. Team Happy had Yi Shu, so this shouldn't have been a team that Cao Guangcheng would look down on. However, Cao Guangcheng did, because he had thought he knew more than anyone that it didn't matter if Yi Shu was there or not since he couldn't be interviewed anyways. If he couldn't interview Yi Shu, then what value did Team Happy have to him? What, you think they would actually win the Challenger League? But they did. Happy became the champions of the Challenger League and Chang Xian had a monopoly over Happy's interview resources. His publications continuously appeared on Esports Home. He had even gotten an exclusive interview from Yi Shu. Everyone knew that Yi Shu no longer shied away from this sort of thing, but why didn't that asshole show this attitude earlier? If Cao Guangcheng had known that Yi Shu would be willing to accept interviews, would he have so easily given Happy's lane to Chang Xian to run? Of course not. Unfortunately, there were no ifs. The Excellent era that Cao Guangcheng had his bets on and followed was now facing the problem of disbandment. And Happy, having defeated Excellent era, was now a news hotspot. Chang Xian's attitude towards him hadn't changed any, still treating him respectfully as a senior, but Cao Guangcheng understood clearly that their roles had changed. In the future, City H's reporter base would be Chang Xian's turf because if the reporter base in City H were to remain, then it would be there for Happy. Chang Xian was on good terms with Happy and this was no secret in their circle. Through his connections, Cao Guangcheng had also gotten wind that the higher-ups had no intentions of switching out Chang Xian and instead couldn't stop praising him. During this period of time, Happy was a news hotspot and Esports Home had the best reports of all things Happy. This was entirely thanks to Chang Xian. The people in their circle were all too satisfied with Chang Xian's work and didn't have any intentions to try for his place. Cao Guangcheng despaired. None of the higher-ups even tried to take this chance to pick peaches. It was probably impossible for him to replace Chang Xian. Follow around and wait on his past disciple? Cao Guangcheng couldn't bring himself to do that. He had already applied to his higher-ups, using Excellent era's absence as a reason, to be switched to a different place. Cao Guangcheng's application hadn't been accepted by Esports Home yet, but he was set on not staying in City H. He had already begun preparing Chang Xian to take over. Sister Chen, hi. The sound of Chang Xian taking a call met Cao Guangcheng's ears. He knew who Chang Xian was talking to, Team Happy's boss, Chen Guo. A call from the boss of a team. Little Chang really had it good. Even though he knew Happy's current situation and the boss personally calling wasn't anything big, Cao Guangcheng couldn't help but be a little jealous. I think we should have some of that. I'll look into it for you and call you later? Okay, I'll do that then. Bye, Sister Chen. The call was hung up. It sounded like Chen Guo had asked for Chang Xian to look into something. What did Happy want? Cao Guangcheng asked casually. Usually, a question like this meant that he had eavesdropped on Chang Xian's phone call. Even though Chang Xian had no intentions to hide it from him, this still wasn't very good, especially between reporters. It was a sort of taboo. However, Cao Guangcheng was down in the dumps and didn't care to consider this. Oh, Brother Cao, I was going to ask. It'd probably be more convenient for me to just ask you, Chang Xian said. What? Cao Guangcheng asked. Happy wanted to ask, what sponsors does Excellent era have, big or small? The more details we have the better, Chang Xian replied. That. Do they really need us to help them look into that? Cao Guangcheng couldn't help but laugh at the answer he had gotten. What was a sponsor? They were the ones who gave you money and in return, you had to promote them. Thus, sponsors wouldn't be any sort of secret. Excellent Era had to find every way to show the world what sponsors they had. If you took a look at that, wouldn't Excellent Era's sponsors become clear? She wants to know all the sponsors they've ever had, including ones that backed out, so I think I should still take a look for her, Chang Xian said. Oh, I'm not too certain about that either. How about you look into it, Cao Guangcheng said. As for the reason Happy wanted to look into this information, never mind him, even Chang Xian could easily guess that. It couldn't be anything but that Happy was starting to look for sponsorships, and they wanted to take the sponsors from Excellent Era, who were facing disbandment. This was an appropriate move to make. However, wasn't Happy simplifying everything too much? If a sponsor sponsored Excellent Era, then that showed where they stood. Now, Happy had defeated Excellent Era and blocked them out of the Pro Alliance, pushing them to the dire situation they were in. Happy was Excellent Era's enemy. Those who were only just sponsoring Excellent Era a moment ago would turn around and sponsor Happy instead? Businesses cared about how they looked. Doing this would be no different from calling whoever had Milk Mother. Who would want that sort of image? Taking Excellent Era's sponsors was a good idea. However, Happy's boss Chen, it seems like you really don't understand. Glory is a competitive scene. If anyone were to invest in this area, it was a little different. Especially for local sponsors, it would be more than difficult for them to turn to Happy the moment Excellent Era fell. Oh yeah, Cao Guangcheng suddenly remembered something, calling out to Chang Xian. If Happy wants sponsors, there's one I recommend. Who? Chang Xian asked. Chai Tea Green, Cao Guangcheng said, a barely perceptible smile flashing over his face. He didn't want to compete for anything anymore, but maybe watching Happy humiliated would help get rid of the frustration in his heart. Chapter 1068. Chai Tea Green Sponsorship. Chai Tea Green? Chang Xian stared blankly. He wasn't a City H person, but he had worked as a reporter here for quite some time. He was no stranger to this name. It was a name that could be seen everywhere in City H. Chai Tea Green was a privately owned tea beverage company in City H. The various tea drinks that they produced were best sellers in the country. In City H, it occupied a large market share. Beverages had an extremely wide range of uses. They could sponsor practically anything. However, for esports, the goods that gained the most benefit from sponsorships were tech-related products. As a result, the vast majority of team sponsorships were tech-related products. Cao Guangcheng said that he had a good recommendation. Chang Xian originally thought that it was a tech-related product, but it turned out to be a tea drink? How could you say that was a great recommendation? Cao Guangcheng saw Chang Xian's hesitation and obviously knew what he was hesitating about. He smiled, go do some research. Okay, Chang Xian replied and went to look up related information. Since Cao Guangcheng had recommended dry tea green, he would naturally pay particularly close attention to it. What do you think? Cao Guangcheng asked a short while later. This Chai Tea Green really is Excellent Era's most faithful sponsor. Chang Xian was moved. The data showed that Chai Tea Green had sponsored Excellent Era for a good 7 years. Starting from Season 3, Chai Tea Green had been Excellent Era's most loyal sponsor. Take a look at this season, Cao Guangcheng said. Oh, Chang Xian checked the Season 9 data. Chai Tea Green was still a sponsor. Although the amount wasn't as high, Excellent Era had been relegated this season, so all their sponsors substantially lowered their sponsorship amounts. That wasn't anything strange, no? Chai Tea Green still sponsored them during Season 9, Cao Guangcheng said. Yeah, most of Excellent Era's sponsors stayed. After all, with Excellent Era's position, these sponsors probably hadn't included any clauses in their contract that would nullify it as soon as they were relegated, Chang Xian said. Yes, clauses that cancelled the contract once the team was relegated. Whether it was sponsors or players, these types of automatic clauses would show up. However, those were for mid-tier and bottom-tier teams. For a powerhouse like Excellent Era, adding in that sort of clause was an insult. How could Excellent Era get relegated? Not long before, no one thought it was possible. As a result, whether it was sponsors or players, no one would be concerned about adding in this clause in the contract. It was a groundless fear. Haha, the vast majority didn't, but there are exceptions, Cao Guangcheng said. Could you mean Chianti Green? Chang Xian realized what Cao Guangcheng was getting at and immediately checked the data. We don't have any of the details of the contract here, but I know that the contract between Chianti Green and Excellent Era has always included this clause. However, in Season 9, even though the contract could be cancelled because of the clause, they did not cease their sponsorship. They only reduced the sponsorship amount. This at least shows their determination in sponsoring Glory. Chang Xian nodded his head. Cao Guangcheng's words were reasonable. But after looking at the data some more, he asked again, but this Chianti Green? Their sponsorship amount isn't really that high. Chianti Green is determined to sponsor Glory, yet the sponsorship amount isn't high. What does this mean? It means that there's room for negotiation. After Excellent Era won 3 championships in a row, they fell on the decline. Their performance was just passable. But Happy has instantly become famous. Their reputation is rising accordingly. There really is an opportunity for them to get a deal with Chianti Green, Cao Guangcheng said. You're too right, Chang Xian was excited. He sincerely hoped the best for Happy. After organizing the information, he immediately called Chen Guo, sending her this information, while stressing the name Chianti Green. Chianti Green. Chen Guo grew up in City H. She was very familiar with this name. Saying that she grew up drinking their tea was a bit too much, but she had the circumstances to. Chen Guo just didn't really like it that much, that's all. In the beginning, Chianti Green was focused solely on tea drinks, but they had expanded their market into all sorts of areas now. Their tea drinks were still their most popular products though, especially in City H. This company's strength didn't need to be mentioned. If Team Happy could get a sponsorship from them, that would be a huge step forward. Chen Guo asked about everything she could from Chang Xian. After hanging up, she smugly started to prepare her attack. According to Lu Guaning's analysis, Team Happy just needed to wait for sponsorships to come knocking on their door. However, Chen Guo wanted to be more proactive. Chianti Green was their first target. Chang Xian had told her who to contact. Chen Guo immediately contacted him. The person on the other end was clearly just an assistant or secretary responsible for taking calls. After hearing Chen Guo's purpose for calling, the secretary was slightly startled and seemed to ask someone for more instructions. Then, the secretary gave Chen Guo a reply, tomorrow at 9 a.m. Not bad. The other side had quickly arranged for a meeting. It looked like the other side was very interested in sponsoring them. Chang Xian's recommendation was good. This Chianti Green valued sponsoring Glory quite a bit. Chen Guo excitedly returned to Upper Forest Park and told the news to Yi Shu. Chianti Green? Yi Shu heard the name and wrinkled his brow. What's wrong? Chen Guo was a bit confused about Yi Shu's response. I'll go with you tomorrow to take a look, Yi Shu said. Oh. How did you think to contact them? Yi Shu asked. Little Chang recommended them, Chen Guo said. Little Chang? Yi Shu was surprised, why did he recommend them? Chen Guo told him what Chang Xian said. Yi Shu nodded his head, that's reasonable. Yeah. Then let's go tomorrow morning. We can't be late, Chen Guo said. Understood, Yi Shu nodded his head. Chen Guo excitedly logged into Glory and started playing. As for Yi Shu, his QQ blinked. He saw a message from Su Mucheng. Chianti Green? Yeah, we'll take a look tomorrow and then we'll see, Yi Shu replied. Okay, Su Mucheng didn't say anything more. The next morning, Chen Guo dragged Yi Shu out the door. She didn't want to leave a bad impression on the other side by being late. But when the two arrived at Chianti Green, it was only 8:30 a.m. After being guided by the receptionist, the two came to Chianti Green's External Affairs Department. The person to receive them was the person who had picked up Chen Guo's call yesterday. Because it wasn't yet the appointment time, the secretary arranged for the two to wait a bit at the lobby. Everything seemed to be going well, so Chen Guo was very excited. External Affairs, will we need this type of department in the future? Chen Guo asked Yi Shu. Of course, Yi Shu nodded his head. Time passed. In the blink of an eye, it was 9 a.m. Chen Guo was looking forward to it, but then that secretary came back on time with an apologetic look, sorry. Mr. Shaw still has some business to take care of. I'll have to ask you two to wait just a bit longer. Oh, no worries. We'll wait then. Thanks. A thread of disappointment flashed across Chen Guo's face, but it disappeared soon. It was just a bit longer. It was nothing. Then let's wait a bit. After the secretary left, Chen Guo let out an expression of disappointment and then sat back down. This meeting, it's best if you don't put too much hopes on it, Yi Shu suddenly said. Why? Chen Guo didn't understand. Do you know who the Mr. Sha she mentioned is? Yi Shu asked. Yeah, Chen Guo nodded her head. Sha Zongtian, Chianti Green's external affairs director. Chianti Green is his Sha family's business. He's the son of Chianti Green's CEO Sha Dongnan. More importantly, he's a huge Glory fan. Correct, Yi Shu nodded his head, he's a Glory fan. What's more, he's a very loyal Team Excellent Era fan. Oh, Chen Guo was slightly surprised. Even though she hadn't realized anything, she could feel that Yi Shu was hinting at something. How much do you know about Chianti Green's sponsorship for Excellent Era? Yi Shu asked. They've been sponsors for 7 years, starting from Season 3 of the Glory Alliance. Chianti Green's sponsorship for Excellent Era has never stopped even when Excellent Era was relegated this season. Despite having a clause saying that they could null the contract after the team was relegated, they insisted on sponsoring them and only reduced the sponsorship by a bit, Chen Guo said. Correct, Yi Shu nodded his head. Then what if I told you that Chianti Green's sponsorship for Excellent Era is actually Sha Zongtian's personal decision? What would you think? Personal decision? Chen Guo was puzzled. Yes. In reality, the company Chianti Green doesn't have much interest in sponsoring a Glory team. However, Sha Zongtian is a big fan of Glory and also a loyal Excellent Era fan, so he stood his ground against everyone else and insisted on sponsoring Excellent Era. Chianti Green is the Sha family's business, so the department turned a blind eye towards it and approved his request. You can say that this sponsorship isn't a business contract, but rather a fan's personal support for the team. Yi Shu said. Why do you know so much? Chen Guo was astonished. Hello. If I remember correctly, I was once Team Excellent Era's former captain, Yi Shu said. So you're saying that Chianti Green isn't interested in supporting any team other than Excellent Era? Chen Guo said. Yes, Yi Shu nodded his head. Then why did Little Chong strongly recommend Chianti Green? He's probably too young and didn't understood this crux of the matter, Yi Shu said. From the surface, a sponsorship from Chianti Green truly has a lot of potential. Then why were we called over? I'm puzzled about that too, Yi Shu said. Chen Guo had originally been excited, but now she was nervous. In the blink of an eye, it was 10 a.m. In terms of their appointment time, they had waited for an entire hour. Mr. Sha, they've already waited for an hour. Shouldn't you meet them? In Sha Zongtian's office, the secretary asked. No time. I'm busy. Have them wait some more. Sha Zongtian didn't even glance at his secretary. He just looked at the screen as sounds of mouse clicking and keyboard tapping sounded incessantly. Chapter 1069. Sha Zongtian. 10 turned to 11. 11 turned to 12. The entire morning passed, and there were still no signs of Sha Zongtian. Meanwhile, his secretary appeared before Yi Shu and Chen Guo for the 4th time already, telling them awkwardly, it's already noon. Mr. Zhang told you two to come by again in the afternoon. Oh, the afternoon. What time in the afternoon? Chen Guo asked. We have a meeting in the afternoon, the secretary replied deftly. She did not say when Sha Zongtian would meet with them. She only said that there would be a meeting in the afternoon. Miss Wang, sorry to trouble you, Chen Guo smiled at the secretary, who was putting on a fake smile. Chen Guo had started managing the internet cafe in her teens. The industry that she fought in wasn't very high-end, but she had at least experienced many things. After hearing about the history behind Chianti Green's sponsorship for Excellent Era from Yi Shu and seeing that the other side wasn't sincere at all, calling him over was mostly likely just to play with them. Then please make yourselves at home, the secretary smiled apologetically and left first. Chen Guo looked at Yi Shu and sighed. The two got up. As they left, they walked past the external affair offices. Secretary Wang's office was just outside the door. She heard a phone call, entered the room, and when she went out of the room, she saw the two of them. She gave a smile and nodded her head. Miss Wang, do you know what Sha Zongtian was busy with this morning? Yi Shu suddenly asked. Secretary Wang was surprised by the question, but she quickly put on a professional smile. I'm afraid that it's not convenient to say. Haha, he's just playing glory. What's not convenient? Yi Shu laughed. Secretary Wang was stunned. It was obvious that Yi Shu was correct. Chen Guo had originally been pondering over whether they should come back in the afternoon. Maybe Sha Zongtian really had been busy and was testing their sincerity? But now it looked like that guy was actually playing glory the entire morning, intentionally having them wait there. She immediately became angry. If he didn't want to sponsor them, it would only take a few words to tell them. Instead, he felt the need to bully them. What's up with that? Chen Guo stepped forward. Accompanied by a shout from Secretary Wang, what are you doing? She arrived at Sha Zongtian's office and pushed the door open. What is it now? Xiao Zongtian was sitting behind his desk. The monitor on his desk was at least 42 inches. His head was buried behind it. He couldn't be seen at all. When he heard the door open, he didn't even peek his head out to look. He simply asked a question. I'm Team Happy's boss, Chen Guo huffed. Didn't I tell you to come again in the afternoon? I'm busy here. Sha Zongtian didn't even tilt his head. Busy with what? You're almost dead. Yi Shu also walked in with Chen Guo and suddenly spoke up. Sorry, Xiaozhong. I'll lead them out immediately. Secretary Wang chased after them in a panic and apologized to Sha Zongtian first. Sha Zongtian didn't utter a word. The sounds of keyboard taps and mouse clicking intensified, but soon afterwards, the noise suddenly came to a halt. It's fine. You can go. This has nothing to do with you, Sha Zongtian suddenly said. The secretary, who was urging Chen Guo and Yi Shu to get out, was surprised. She quietly left the room and closed the door. Sha Zongtian's head finally peeked out from the monitor. He glanced at the two of them. Arrogance hung on his face. Hey, if it isn't Yi Chu. Wait, no, God, Yi Shu. What a rare guest. Sha Zongtian held a long face and spoke in a weird tone of voice. It was as if he was trying hard to put on a mocking look. Chen Guo looked at this young person. He was like her back then. He was a big Glory fan and a big Excellent Era fan. He took advantage of his business to sponsor Excellent Era. Even though he was a bit capricious, his love and passion for Glory and Excellent Era easily showed. This type of person probably wasn't a bad person. Chen Guo didn't know why, but that was what she felt. Even after Sha Zongtian made them wait the entire morning and despite his disrespectful attitude, Chen Guo realized that she really couldn't feel disgusted towards him. You want a sponsor? One word, no. You can go. There was no point toying around with Happy any longer, so he directly expressed his position. Don't be like that, Mr. Shaw. It wasn't easy for us to make this trip here. We've waited for so long. Why not at least hear us out? Chen Guo suddenly said. This reply surprised Yi Shu. He had thought that with Chen Guo's personality, she would definitely start arguing furiously with Sha Zongtian. However, instead, she displayed this kind of attitude. She still wasn't giving up and still wanted to fight for a sponsor? Sha Zongtian wasn't a normal Excellent Era fan. As someone who grew up in City H, apart from the normal dedication of a fan, he also had pride for his region. His support for Excellent Era was entirely for this team alone and would never change. He was undoubtedly an extremely loyal Excellent Era fan. Even until today, he detested Yi Shu and hated Happy. Getting him to change his mind and support Happy would be extremely difficult. Even though Chen Guo was brave and did what she said she would do, Yi Shu also knew that persuasion wasn't her strong point. Alright, go ahead. In any case, my decision isn't going to change. You can waste your time, Sha Zongtian said expressionlessly. Then, his two hands started to move again. His actions clearly expressed, you can say yours, I'll play mine. No matter what you say, my final answer will be, no. Chen Guo didn't seem to care and started speaking, then I'll be speaking. Let me first tell you about our Happy Internet Cafe's history. Our Happy Internet Cafe. Chen Guo really did start talking. After a few words, Yi Shu laughed inwardly. This Chen Guo was great. She didn't have any intentions of persuading the other side. Happy Internet Cafe's history? Was there a need? Not at all. Happy Internet Cafe's history would have absolutely no impact on the other side's decision towards Team Happy. Almost half an hour had passed since she started talking, and Chen Guo was at Happy Internet Cafe's third year, when she was 6. Boss Chen wasn't at the level where her words were sharp enough to leave the other side speechless, but her ability to tell a long-winded story wasn't weak. It wasn't easy for someone to remember all those small details so clearly and then say it to Sha Zongtian in a serious tone. Was this requesting a sponsorship? Of course not. This was entirely to annoy Sha Zongtian. Using rambling to waste Xiao Zongtian's time as revenge for making her and Yishu wait the entire morning. This method was kinda stupid. She was harming herself, wasting her own voice. But did it cause any real damage to the other side? It did. Yishu knew very clearly. He could easily tell by listening. He didn't even need to look. During this half hour, Sha Zongtian was still playing Glory, most likely peeking in the arena. However, his playing was a mess. For someone who loved Glory for so many years, even if he wasn't at a pro level, he should at least be somewhat skilled. His movements should at least have some sort of rhythm and strategy to them. However, Sha Zongtian didn't have any at all. It was a complete mess. It was as if he didn't know what he was doing at all. He clearly wasn't focused because of a certain person rambling nonsense the entire time. He obviously didn't want to hear it, but when her voice drilled into his ears, his brain couldn't help but listen to the contents. Once he started listening, his attention became split, messing up his playing. He played match after match. During these past 30 minutes, Sha Zongtian played at a speed of one match every 3 minutes and lost every single one of them. He gave an irritated and furious glare at Chen Guo, but he didn't say anything to stop her. It seemed like he was planning on competing with Chen Guo. As a result, he pulled out his ace and turned up the sound. This ace was too powerful for Chen Guo. She couldn't do anything about it and stopped talking. Sha Zongtian was delighted. In reality, his earphones didn't have sound. This was his office, after all. Even though he was the manager, he couldn't play games too openly. Even if it was just for a few minutes, he had to turn down the sound. He needed to listen for any matters that he needed to deal with even during break time. As a result, when Sha Zongtian played Glory in his office, he never played with sound. Because of this, he dared to play games during work time. It never hindered his work, so no one could say anything about it. Of course, Chianti Green was his Sha family's business. This point alone was more important than his work not being hindered by him playing games. Putting on these headphones was enough for this woman to shut up. Sha Zongtian felt a feeling of victory from his trick succeeding. As for Chen Guo, after being hit by this blow, she felt a bit dispirited. She looked around and discovered that Yishu had left the room already. Chen Guo immediately got up. Sha Zongtian saw that she was about to leave and pretended not to see as if she were just air. Chen Guo only just opened the door when she saw that Yishu was right outside the door playing Glory at Secretary Wang's desk. Chen Guo felt helpless. Where is she? She went out for lunch. I asked her if I could use her computer to play some Glory. She said I could. Yishu. The boss liked the game so much, so the secretary couldn't help but follow along. It wasn't just her. Everyone in the External Affairs office followed along. If you looked around, you would see Glory card readers at every desk. We're done here, let's go, Chen Guo said. What's wrong? You ran out of things to say, Yishu asked with a grin. That guy's put on his headphones, Chen Guo said. It looks like it's my time to shine, Yishu said. What do you mean? Chen Guo was startled. When she looked at Yishu's screen, his character had squeezed into the arena. He was only spectating though. At this moment, an open spot appeared, and Yishu quickly took it. Who's this guy? Chen Guo pointed at Yishu's opponent on the screen. Yishu pointed inside the room. That's too evil, Chen Guo cried out. At the same time, she started thinking. Were those two here to get a sponsor or were these two here to bully each other? Chapter 1070. Off to a bad start. Sha Zongtian was one of Excellent Era's sponsors, and he himself also played Glory. His character obviously wasn't any sort of secret to Excellent Era's people, so it was no secret to the former captain of Excellent Era, Yishu. Yishu took the secretary's computer and logged in with a random account card before searching for Sha Zongtian's character in the arena, easily finding his room. The moment the Shazongtian's opponent left the room, he resolutely placed his own character in the arena. Which smurf was Yi Shu using? Chen Guo didn't bother checking because it wouldn't affect the result. No matter what class he used, it would all just be bullying noobs for Yi Shu, no? In that moment, Chen Guo began to feel sorry for the person inside the room. Compared to her own rambling, this was probably a far harsher attack. Chen Guo could guess that Yi Shu wouldn't go too easy on him. As expected, Chen Guo had just reached this conclusion when a round had been finished. Chen Guo glanced at the time. 30 seconds. Or was it even less? In the blink of an eye, the second round began. Chen Guo couldn't even bear to watch the process. It was like watching an adult hit a kid. Anyone with a conscience wouldn't be able to admire the process. They would only find it cruel and inhumane. The second round quickly ended, and then the third began. Chen Guo felt like she could hear the frustrated breaths through the door. Sha Zongtian had been a Glory fan for so long already, so even if he had no talent whatsoever, his skill wouldn't be too bad. In the online game, he had probably never lost so badly. As a sponsor, he might have fought a pro-level match before, but being a sponsor meant that Excellent Era's players would take it easy on him. However, Yi Shu was merciless this time. In the time that these thoughts had taken place, Sha Zongtian had lost his 6th match already. Chen Guo's rambling had distracted him, causing him to lose a match in 3 minutes. Now that Yi Shu had personally gotten onto the field, Sha Zongtian managed to lose 6 matches in 3 minutes. From this, it could be seen that there was definitely a reasoning behind the saying that one shouldn't make empty promises, but act on them. 5 minutes went by rapidly and Sha Zongtian had already lost 10 matches. 5 minutes, 10 matches lost. Chen Guo, as a fellow Glory gamer, could easily imagine Sha Zongtian's current state of mind. But this guy was rather stubborn too. He had been beaten so badly, and there was an obvious disparity in skill, but he still refused to give up, unwilling to leave the room and fighting match after match. Another 5 minutes passed. The phone on the secretary's desk rang with a ringtone dedicated specifically for the boss. Yi Shu picked the call up casually. What? How come my lunch isn't here yet? Sha Zongtian didn't seem to realize that the person picking up didn't have his secretary's voice at all. You've lost so many times and you can still eat? Yi Shu asked. Silence fell. Then, Chen Guo heard the sound of a chair moving. Looking into the room, she saw that Sha Zongtian had finally stood up, walking around his wide desk and out of the room. It was you just now. Sha Zongtian came out of the room and saw Yi Shu where his secretary should have been. Glory was running on the computer. Even though he hadn't seen Yi Shu's character, he wasn't dumb. It wasn't hard to guess. Yi Shu smiled, but didn't say anything. My skill level is that bad? Sha Zongtian looked incredulous. It's not that bad, Yi Shu said. Chen Guo and Sha Zongtian were both struck speechless. What this person was implying was obviously that he was too strong. That was just too arrogant. However, no one could retort to his arrogance. This was Yi Shu, a god at the peak of glory. If he were humble and said something like he wasn't so good, wasn't so powerful, then that would be equal to slapping the faces of all glory players. If you weren't powerful, then what would we all be? Mr. Sha, do you want to continue? Yi Shu asked. No need, Sha Zongtian replied. He wasn't a masochist. How about our discussions? Yi Shu asked. There's no need for that either. Sha Zongtian looked at Chen Guo with a hint of anxiousness. It seemed like Chen Guo's scolding of him just now did have its impact. Well, since your lunch still hasn't arrived, how about we all sit and talk it out? Yi Shu suggested. Is there a need? I feel that you know that I will never sponsor Happy. I find it strange that you would come, Sha Zongtian said. As Sha Zongtian, you definitely couldn't, but as the head of TKA Green's marketing department, I feel like this is quite a good chance, Yi Shu said. Sha Zongtian paused for a moment, digesting that. Sha Zongtian not sponsoring Happy was because he personally couldn't accept it. However, from a business perspective, with the amount of attention Happy was receiving recently, they were a great sponsorship choice. Especially for TKA Green. This was because the relationship between Excellent Era and their other sponsors was purely about business. They gave a sponsorship and naturally hoped that Excellent Era would do their best to promote their products. However, TKA Green was different. Since their sponsorship was more of Sha Zongtian's personal desire, the company didn't sponsor them much, and they didn't require much from Excellent Era either. Even the most loyal local fans of Excellent Era probably didn't know that their local famed company Chianti Green was one of the sponsors of the team they loved. The sponsorship given by Chianti Green was frankly like an expenditure a rich young master had made on a whim. The money had been spent and he was satisfied. He had never hoped to profit from it. This sponsorship hadn't gained any influence, so it was perfectly alright for Chianti Green to turn around and sponsor Happy instead. They weren't like the other main sponsors of Excellent Era who had to carefully consider things if they wanted to sponsor Happy. Sha Zongtian was the head of external affairs, so he had a professional eye for these things. It was just that when it came to glory, to Excellent Era, he liked to act on his emotions. With Yishu's reminder, he realized that, from business perspective, the current Happy truly was a good sponsorship choice. If he wrote up a feasible and professional report, the board might even accept it. In that instant, Sha Zongtian began to consider this from a professional perspective. However, as he began to think of the practical execution, he remembered how Excellent Era was facing disbandment, and that all this was the personal handiwork of the very team in front of him, led by the man in front of him. Sha Zongtian's rationality immediately burned away. "I refuse," he said without a hint of emotion. He wanted Happy's people to feel frustrated. "Although I can't influence much, at the very least, you won't be able to get a sponsorship from me. This was the only thing I can make you do in punishment for your deeds." That was what Sha Zongtian thought. "I see, what a shame. You've missed a good opportunity," Yishu said. "Don't worry, Chianti Green has plenty of marketing channels," Sha Zongtian replied aloofly. "Oh, then how do you plan to end your sponsorship with Excellent Era?" Yishu asked. "You actually have the audacity to ask that?" Sha Zongtian's cold demeanor melted immediately, replaced by the flames of anger. In his heart, it didn't matter what had brought Excellent Era to where they were now along the way, but Yishu and Happy had given Excellent Era the final blow. This blow was the reason he couldn't forgive Yishu and Happy. Even though he had gleaned the intricacies of these events from news reports, this would only fill him with disdain for Dao Zan, but it wouldn't influence his hatred of Yishu and Happy for their finishing blow. That's what competition is. You give and you gain. Why wouldn't I have the audacity? Yishu asked. Sha Zongtian didn't know how to reply. In reality, that wasn't what he wanted to express. The reason he didn't like Yishu and Happy was just because they had given Excellent Era its finishing blow. In regards to how Yishu used to be a member of Excellent Era and got kicked out before striking back, he didn't really feel anything that meant, for him, in this victory and defeat, Yishu was just like any other player. They won and Excellent Era fell, so he hated them. That was how simple it was. For Yishu's victory, only the competition mattered. For Sha Zongtian's hate, it was in reality only about the competition as well. Excellent Era needs help. Perhaps you could find a chance, Yishu said. Me? The topic brought up, Sha Zongtian still seemed bitter. I hope so, too, but unfortunately I don't have that ability. You will. You just need the right opportunity, Yishu said. What do you mean? Sha Zongtian was taken aback. Excellent Era is currently dismantling and selling parts of its assets. What Yishu said was the nightmare of any Excellent Era fan. I hope that its most important part won't be dismantled. Let's go, Yishu said to Chen Guo. Oh. Chen Guo made a sound of agreement but felt that it was quite a shame. There had been a moment where Chen Guo saw that Sha Zongtian had been seriously and rationally considering sponsoring Happy. She had held a flicker of hope, but unfortunately, Sha Zongtian still refused in the end. As expected of a huge Excellent Era fan. In the end, he couldn't get over the fact that Happy had struck down Excellent Era. Chen Guo couldn't argue against this because Sha Zongtian cared solely about the competition and the results. He made this decision because of the outcome. Unless they changed the outcome of that match, they wouldn't be able to change his mind, and unfortunately that was impossible. We're off to a bad start. After leaving Chianti Green, Chen Guo, who had kept on speaking for a full half hour, was melting under the sun. She bought 2 drinks from a vending machine and threw 1 bottle to Yishu before rapidly downing half of her own bottle. Then she took a look at the packaging, Chianti Green. Yishu didn't seem affected and twisted the bottle open to drink. Don't worry about it. There's no reason for us to lack sponsors, it's just that you chose an impossible mission from the get-go. It's just looking to fail. That brat, little Chong, I'll show him. Chen Guo's aggro switched targets and she immediately took out her phone to dial Chong Xian. Speaking of, although they had been firmly rejected by Sha Zongtian, she still couldn't bring herself to hate him. In the end, it was all because of his love for the game. He was no different from Chen Guo, Yi Shu and everyone else who loved glory.